And welcome back again. Our final segment today is going to take a look at economic, technological, competitive, and regulatory forces and the impact they have. Let's start with economic factors. Probably the biggest thing that we look at as marketers is how much money do consumers have to spend. And what we know is that even today, consumer median household income is barely what it was in 2009. So we've had almost 10 years of decline and very slow return to where we were. For marketers, that means people have less money to spend. And we've seen that in terms of the slow growth of the economy. That also means as marketers, we need to look at things that provide better value for consumers because they're being very careful with how they spend their money now. We're also starting to see as the boomers retire, we have zero earners. Remember when I said that, effectively by the time you hit 65, according to marketing, you're dead? Well, the reason why is you go from being an earning member of society to somebody who's pulling money out of a retirement account or from some sort of retirement savings. If you're lucky, a lot of people don't do that. But what we've seen is this kind of zero earner group come along. And that group is getting bigger and bigger. And what they want to do is they want to stretch that amount of cash they have as long as they can because they know if they retire at 65, the odds are pretty high. They're going to be around for at least 15 and probably 20 more years, 25 years. And they have to be careful in how they spend that money. So that again cuts into what we see as marketers being spent. We've seen that income is directly tied to education. For years, we've been telling people that there's a huge difference between somebody who just has a high school diploma and somebody who has a bachelor's degree. Well, now we're seeing that stretch out, and there's a big difference between those with just a bachelor's degree and those with a master's degree. And a master's degree is becoming de facto the standard now because bachelor's degrees are fairly common with all the variety of ways you can get one. So if you want to earn more, you probably want to become better educated. Now, having said that, you can also go into a trade. If you become a plumber, a welder, you'll probably get to six figures a lot faster than somebody with a college degree. But you have to understand that those jobs are vastly different in what they require of you. Okay? The next thing is, because we've seen these low incomes, these slow growth in incomes and the rise of zero earners, that it's bred a whole new style of retail. We call that extreme value retailing. So people like Dollar General, Dollar Tree, a buck or two, all of those guys are seeing record growth. Throw into that groups like Ross Dress for Less or TJX. They're the ones seeing the growth. The ones that are getting hurt are the people in the middle who are going after consumers when they had rising incomes and they were younger. So now what we've got is this definite shift in retail towards value retailing. And we've seen that shift over into products where even manufacturers like Procter & Gamble, who brought out the Gain line, did that specifically to address the need of consumers for a product that had certain characteristics but at a low cost. We also take a look at somebody's purchasing power. That's their income compared to their cost of living. That's dramatically different around the US. If you're living in San Francisco or New York, your purchasing power is a lot less than if you're living in Grand Forks or Austin, Texas. Because the cost of living in those places is still less expensive. Cost of housing is less expensive. Everything's less expensive. So you get more for the dollars you earn. Right now, there's a big fear about inflation coming back. Inflation occurs when essentially there's more money being produced than the efficiencies of the economy can warrant. And what that means is the dollars become worth less because there's so many more of them in circulation. If you want to see a look at that in action, take a look at what's going on in Venezuela right now, where they have rampant inflation. And it's getting to the point where people, they don't post prices in stores because the price changes from the time you walk in to the time you go to pay. That's how quickly inflation comes along, is how quickly inflation goes in that country. We've had inflation here before. Back in the 70s, we had inflation, and it will come back again. The Federal Reserve, the federal government tries to control inflation by making sure the money supply stays within a certain range. The other thing we have to worry about is recession. And most of you grew up in the Great Recession that started in 2008 and continued till about 2012 or 2013. And recession occurs when the economy slows down for more than 2 consecutive quarters. And we've had that. And we're in danger, unfortunately, just like we're in danger of inflation, we're also in danger of a recession now because the economy still isn't growing at a great rate. And a lot of economists would tell you we're one disaster, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, away from another recession hitting us. It could be cutting off of oil supplies to Western Europe would definitely cause something like a recession. So those are economic factors we have to look at. We also have to take a look at the technology and the innovation that are going on. And that's one thing that the United States is famous for, is both technology and innovation. The best thing to think about is we talk about R&D. If you're talking about technology, that's big R and very little d. Big R means you're looking at why things work, the basics, okay? The basics of how we can use physics to do something on a computer. Applied research or innovation is little r, big D. We take that basic technology and we figure out how to turn it into a product that we can use and sell. So we figure out how to use, let's take something simple like a Blu-ray disc, okay? That's even now going out of style, but let's take it because it's a good example. How we can take the way the Blu-ray works to pack more data into a given area than we could before, okay? We see that in terms of computer power, and that's Moore's law, that within a certain period of time, the power doubles, the price halves. And we've seen that for, I think it's 16 generations now, okay? We try and stimulate innovation. The way we stimulate innovation is we go and talk to what are called early adopters. Early adopters are those customers who are willing to try something because they want to stand out, they want to be different. They're the first person on the block to have an LED, or they were the first person on the block to have an LED TV, or the first person to have a Tesla. They always want to be at the forefront and they're willing to pay for it. We also use market research. We're constantly going out and testing customers to find out what they're missing in their existing product. And you're going to do that as one of your tasks as well. When you do the market validation piece, the big piece with market validation is finding out what consumers are not getting solved with the existing products where we could develop something to solve it. And hopefully we can develop at a price point and in terms of its ability to solve the problem at a level consumers will buy. We can create an innovative environment. So we see cities being set up. We see things like smart cities being set up. And cities are vying to become smart by putting in Wi-Fi all over the place, by encouraging more and more tech companies to come in. What they're trying to do is create this innovative environment where new products, new services are being developed because that's where the jobs are. It's been said that half of you watching this video will be in jobs 5 years from now that don't exist today. I'd say it's more than that. I'd say 80% of you, when you graduate, will be in a job that doesn't exist today. The title doesn't exist. It'll be something brand new. The last thing is we've seen this rise in the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs used to be sort of looked upon as this little sideline that if you couldn't get a real job, you became an entrepreneur. Now we worship entrepreneurs because they're the ones that have made the difference. Go all the way back to Bill Gates back in the 80s with MS-DOS. That allowed the United States to propel itself to the forefront in computer technology. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Tesla, all of those people have provided Elon Musk. Okay, sorry, I had a bit of a video glitch there. It suddenly stopped. The rise of the entrepreneur, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, take your pick of a variety of others that are out there. Richard Branson, Bill Smith, who founded FedEx, Howard Schultz, who set up Starbucks. Those are the people that have created the jobs recently. Those are the people that are changing society. And we now worship them, where before we used to look down on entrepreneurs. That was seen as kind of a dirty job that nobody really wanted. We know that innovation and employment are closely tied. The more innovation we have, the more jobs we have. And we're creating jobs in new areas. We might lose jobs in steel production, but we gain them in some other area. But now we've got another big fear coming along, and that's the robots. Now, robots have been in manufacturing for decades, but now we're seeing them come into marketing. And they're taking over a lot of the roles traditionally humans played in marketing. And we'll have to figure out what's going to happen to those people that are displaced by the robots. What will they do? Are they going to program the robots? Or what new jobs will emerge for them to do? Outside of technology, we have political and legal factors. Politicians have an impact on our daily lives. We often don't like to admit that, but they do. And they have that impact through the types of regulation they bring in or the types of laws they pass. So we've seen all sorts of federal legislation that have been geared towards marketing. The Sherman Antitrust Act, where you can't control too much of an area, from the 1890s. The Federal Trade Commission, which regulates what things that can and cannot be said. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which we talked about in that first lecture when it came to bribes and things like that and cultural issues. Then we've got a variety of state and local laws. Opening hours, blue laws, if you've got a right to work state versus a place where it's heavily unionized. You have all of these types of things all play a role in our cost structure as marketers. In addition to that, we have regulatory agencies. The Food and Drug Administration. If you ever work in the medical side, you will quickly learn the power of the FDA. But also on the food side, the Federal Trade Commission. Well, we've seen the Federal Trade Commission recently and some of the rulings they've been on. The Federal Communications Commission and their rulings on internet neutrality have had a major impact on marketing. We've also got the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which regulates how we produce things, whether it's garments in terms of flammability or child safety seats for cars. All of that's included in this. And of course, the big elephant right now, consumer privacy. Government is controlling how much information we as marketers can collect because they don't want consumers to lose their privacy. And as we're going to see in the next chapter on international, they're far more active on that in Europe than they are here. And last but not least, the competitive forces. The competition is stronger today than it's ever been for market share and profits. And that's not just true for your typical domestic suppliers, but now we have a whole new global competitive market. American companies are being forced to do more and more global work because they've essentially mined out the American economy. If they want to continue their growth, they have to expand. But if they're going to expand, they have to adapt. Think back to the cultural we talked about the other day. And on the other side of the coin, international companies that have tapped out their market are coming to the US because they see it as a green field for them. And they also know that something like 50% of all consumer spending globally happens here. So if you want to be a major player, you need to be here. And that's why we're seeing grocery chains like Aldi making big moves and adding, I think it's 2,000 stores in the United States. We've seen Carrefour, the big French firm, look at the United States. We've seen IKEA expand. We've seen Japanese companies expand. We've seen Chinese companies expand and continue to expand in this country. So competition is the last area we have to look at. Okay, that's it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to move on, starting with Chapter 5, but don't forget, you need to choose the company you want to do your project on for the term. So have a great day, and I'll see you on Friday.